Boxing Day is very nearly upon us. Welcome to the Form Book. This is Racing TV's YouTube guide to all the action across Boxing Day. On the domestic shores, of course, we're looking at Kempton primarily, and then a little look at Wetherby for the Rowland, Meyrick and Aintree, where the feature, of course, is the William Hill Formby Novices Hurdle on that new card created for Boxing Day. Thanks very much for your company throughout the course of the show. A little 30-minute preview, just looking at all the big action, which, of course, is headlined by the Ladbrokes King George VI Chase. I've got two of Racing TV's finest with me here, Allwood and Andy Stephens, both of them, of course, website editors and now tipping editors with our new look website and all that has to offer. But first off, Harry, thanks so much for your company today. How much are you looking forward to all the racing across Boxing Day?
Very much so, Danny. Yeah, I think obviously everyone looks forward to Christmas Day, but there's always half an eye on Boxing Day and the brilliant racing over Christmas. I was joking with some of my friends last night, actually, that I think even the flat racing fans might be getting a little bit excited for the next few days with some, absolutely fantastic action in Britain and Ireland, and obviously all the feature races on Racing TV.
And Andy, what about yourself? Lots to look forward to on Racing TV. Stacks of action, not just across Boxing Day, but across the rest of the festive calendar.
It's a bonanza, Danny. But I've got to start by saying, look, I mean, you told me that we all had to wear our Christmas jumpers. I mean, I've won the podcast because you two are disqualified. You're wearing your boring, tatty kind of gear. I thought, well, just in case I have to raise my game, I've bought my Christmas hat as well. So I had that tucked up my sleeve. I don't need it. I mean, you two are disqualified. So I have won the podcast.
No excuses for the 3/4 zips, I guess, Harry. But, well, here we go then. Let's have a look at all the action. This is coming up on the Form Book. So before we begin, just pointing you in the direction of the New Look Racing TV website. Here's a look at some of the things that you can enjoy. You've got the opportunity to look at race cards, results, tips from the likes of Dan Overall, who was giving the selections at Haydock on Saturday, Katie Midwinter, our very own Andy Stephens, and Dave Neverson. Not just that, you've also got video tips. Here's Dan in action, previewing the action at Haydock. You can then have a look at all the latest news stories, be that Willie Mullins on his stable stars, Andy Stephens' preview of all the grade ones over Christmas, and much, much more, Andy. There's plenty to enjoy on the new website, isn't there?
Yes, plenty to get stuck into. Just to stay away from the Christmas telly and just gorge yourself on the website.
And Harry, of course, on Christmas and on Boxing Day, Harry, there's obviously you can watch up to 4 racecourse feeds at once on Racing TV Extra.
Exactly that, Danny. It'll obviously be a busy day on Boxing Day, just be race after race on the main channel. But head over to racingtv.com. You've got all the dedicated feeds for all the tracks on there. I know I'll be making use of them on Boxing Day as well, and over the Christmas periods. It's also worth mentioning that all the interviews over Christmas will be uploaded onto the Racing TV website. All the replays will be on there, all the top tips, everything you could possibly do, basically, for the Christmas period.
So without further ado, then let's have a look at the big race. That is the Ladbrokes King George VI Chase. 6 runners declared. It's probably not the race we hoped at one stage, with, of course, Jerry Colombe and Royal Pagaille either going elsewhere or sadly missing the race for injury. Allaho, Brave Man's Game, Frodon, Hewick, Shishkin, and the Real Whacker. And a quick look at the betting as well. Currently, you see at the bottom of your screen, 6-4 Fav Allaho, 2-1 Brave Man's Game, 5-1 Shishkin. The Real Whacker at 15-2, 14s for Hewick, and another former winner of the race, Frodon, is 50s. So, Harry, let's come to you first. Who do you like in the King George? Of course, Allaho is a short price favourite, but would you be with or against the Fav?
I would be with him, Danny. I've been looking at this race probably more than I should have done over the past few days, and I just keep coming back to Allaho. I think he's the safest bet. I think he probably can knock his last run slightly, but all things considered, I thought that was a pretty promising run on his first start for 561 days. It was testing ground at Clonmel. He was a bit ring rusty, which you'd expect for being off the track for that long, but I just think he's the best horse in this race. I really do. I think this test will suit him perfectly. And I remember a couple of years ago, a Willie Mullins press trip went to, and he said about Allaho going for the King George, and that's one of his aims that he'd got for this horse. And he's finally going to get to run him in the Kempton showpiece on Boxing Day. I can see him racing handily. If he gets into a good rhythm, I think he will be hard to catch. Obviously, we don't know. I guess this is probably the biggest question mark he's got. Is he as good as he once was? I think he will be. He's still only 9. His performances in the 2 Ryanair chases that he won at the Cheltenham Festival were superb. And I think he's definitely the one to beat. And I'm hoping that it'll be a decent race, even though obviously they haven't got as many runners as we'd probably like to have expected.
Andy, what are your thoughts on the favourite?
Oh, well, he's just a gorgeous big horse, isn't he? You can't not but love him. He's and he's one of those deceptive horses, and he just seems to lob along. Here he is at home, and he just lobs along in the front of his races. You don't think he's going that quick, but I think he's deceptive. I think he is, and he just draws horses out of their comfort zone. I mean, any horse that wins a Ryanair chase by 12 lengths, then another one by 14 lengths, wins a Punchestown Gold Cup, absolutely pummels them again by 14 lengths. He's an absolutely top quality racehorse, or has been. I mean, obviously, what we don't know is just how much ability does he retain after, his well-documented health issues. Had a spleen problem, abdominal bleeds, apparently was in, great discomfort with that. Didn't see him for sort of 19, 20 months. Then he resurfaced in the Clonmel All Chase, who we saw there earlier in the VT. And that was, it wasn't much of a spectacle, and he was very rusty and a little bit slow at his fences. He jumps a little bit left as well. And just on that Clonmel All Chase, I mean, I'm sure the Mullins camp were pretty happy, but there was a mare's chase on the same day over the same trip. And the mare there carried more weight than Alho and went at a time 4 seconds quicker. So I don't know what it really told us about the horse. The second, I didn't think was ridden with any great imagination. It was more or less a solo up front. And it wasn't the Allo of old who would just completely wow us. I mean, it was heavy, deep ground, so maybe he was never going to do that on the day. And I think in terms of Boxing Day, I mean, he's a horse obviously that goes from the front. Frodon goes from the front. The Real Whacker is a front runner. Hewitt likes to get on with it. I do think even though there's 6 runners, it could be a little bit of a battle up there at the front. He's going to be exposed to a pretty fierce pace, early on, and if he's as slovenly as he was early on his return, then he could just suddenly find himself out of his comfort zone a little bit. But I'd love to see him come back and run well. We need our superstars, don't we? And he's certainly one of them.
No, I completely agree about the tactical battle up front. What about the defending champion then, Brave Man's Game? Harry, come back to you. This, of course, was his victory 12 months ago.
Yeah, mightily impressive 12 months ago, Danny. I was really impressed with his victory. And after the race, if you said, 12 months on, he's going to win another King George, I'd probably agree and say that would be the case. But he obviously returned in the Charlie Hall Chase this season. And I think he was just really ring rusty that day. I think he badly needed the run. Would he have won without that mistake at the last? Probably. It's hard to know. But I think after the Charlie Hall Chase this season, it was never really the plan to go for the Betfair Chase. I'm still a bit surprised that Paul Nicholls did that, because I thought his prep run in the Charlie Hall Chase was perfect as a stepping stone towards this year's King George again. But he's had that hard race under his belt now in the Betfair Chase. I think he basically got outstayed in the conditions by Royal Pagal, who obviously defeated in last year's King George. And I know myself and Andy were chatting about this the other day, that maybe the Gold Cup has left its mark on this horse. Had a hard race that day behind Galloping des Champs, and he hasn't, repeated his best form in 3 performances since. So I think he comes here with a couple of question marks to answer, Danny. And for me, I'll be taking one on Boxing Day. I think if he hadn't have had that hard race in the Betfair Chase at Haydock, then I probably would maybe be siding with him. But I think with that under his belt a month ago, it's not the ideal prep and not the usual Paul Nicholls route. So for that reason, I'm taking him on Boxing Day.
Okay, that's Harry's thoughts. What about yourself, Andy? I thought there were some interesting quotes from Paul Nicholls that came out earlier this week. He seems happy enough with where he has Brave Man's Game, but is that a bit of front, or do you really believe the master of Ditchy?
Oh, well, you can't not believe him. He's won 13 King Georges, isn't he? He is the master. I think Paul is more glass half full than half empty. I can't have Brave Man's Game at the price at 2-1, because I think he was exposed to 2 very hard races in the spring at Cheltenham and Punchestown and got beat each time. And his 2 runs this year, he hasn't run to within a stone of his best form. He's been beaten by horses that he should be beating on ratings and on the form book, however you read that. And I thought here we are. This is at Haydock, where he's basically outstayed by Royal Pagal, as a horse that he beat 14 lengths in the King George last year. he can't get near that horse here, and he looks pretty leg weary, doesn't he, at the finish there again. He's got a lovely cruising speed. He's a brilliant jumper. I think you could put a blindfold on him and he'd get round there, albeit he has made late mistakes in his races. Is that a sign of stamina as well? Kempton does suit him undeniably. I would be worried about that, about his prep coming into it. You know, that was a pretty tough race at Haydock he had there. You know, the Betfair Chase can be an attritional contest. And Paul Nicholls hasn't had much time to sort of revive or refresh him. You know, he's only had a month leeway there. So I'd be against him at the prices.
Andy, we're going to stick with you because I know the horse that you're keen on is the Nicky Henderson trained Shishkin. Now, of course, he comes into this on the back of refusing to start in the 1965 chase at Ascot. But just why do you think he's got good claims in this year's King George?
Well, it's like all horse races, Danny. It comes down to price, doesn't it? He's 5-1, Shishkin, and we're talking about a 6-time Grade 1 winner who's just an absolute quality act. He has developed this new naughty streak, but I do think that's factored into his price. If this horse jumps off on Boxing Day and he pings the first 2 fences, what price is he going to be then in running? You ain't going to see 5-1 for love nor money. And I think that could happen. He's 4-4 at Kempton. He does go well fresh. I know Nicky Henderson, he's the opposite of Paul Nicholls. He tends to downplay his chances. I think this horse, you know, he's got a very good record when he's fresh. I wouldn't be too worried about his fitness. And also, of course, you've got the drying ground, good ground. If it's soft, heavy ground, then obviously fitness becomes a real factor in it. But the fact that it's good ground, that definitely helps Shishkin. Here he is winning at Aintree at the end of last season, pulled this one out of the far from Ahoy Signor. This bare form alone probably isn't enough, but this is end of season stuff. For me, he's always looked a horse that's been crying out for a trip. I actually wrote an open letter on the Racing T website asking, inviting Nicky Henderson to run him in the Gold Cup a couple of years ago or a year ago. Didn't happen, of course, but he's a horse that's shown brilliant form over 2 miles and 2.5 miles, but both his pedigree and his running style suggests that, you know, 3 miles is what he wants, and he's very unexposed at the trip.
Okay, so Andy is keen on the chances of Shishkin. I'm going to agree. This was obviously footage from Road to Cheltenham. We can't bring you the Ascot stuff, but Ruby and Lydia were discussing that maybe there was a bit of hesitancy here in a King George from a couple of years ago at the start. But I think, speaking on another podcast up in the Ante earlier this week, Johnny Deneen, who's very close with the Donleys, has reported that Shishkin went for an away day at Kempton recently, and he went with 3 or 4 stable companions and he jumped off fine. So for me, I think if we can forget about the idiosyncrasies, I think he makes plenty of appeal at 5-1.
Yeah,
Harry, what about the rule? Sorry, Andy, go on.
Sorry, just before we go with Shishkin as well, obviously they're going to do things differently as well. George Daly, who rides him and knows him inside out, he's going to be down there at the start with him as well. He wasn't at Ascot. He was at Haydock that day, wasn't there. So he's going to be there holding his hand. And also they're whipping off the cheek pieces, which they put on him at Ascot for the first time. They're going to be discarded on Boxing Day. So they are changing the formula a little bit with him.
Harry, what about the Real Whacker? Of course, a good winner over Jerry Clom at the Cheltenham Festival. Andy's already talked about the tactical battle up front. Do you think that could maybe make his chances a bit less difficult to fancy?
I guess you could say that. Yeah, I mean, I think Throwdown's probably, you know, guaranteed to go from the front. The Real Whacker will probably race up size and we're just behind him. I can see Paul Townend being wise to this and just sitting behind those two on Allaho. I don't think he's going to go off, you know, 1,000,000 miles an hour. If all 3 do go off 1,000,000 miles an hour, then I can see, you know, a horse like Shishkin pick up the pieces. But just going back to Real Whacker, he showed a real good attitude in the Brown Advisory last season. But I think he was maybe a slightly lucky winner there because Jerry Clom, another few strides, he would have beaten the Real Whacker. And obviously Jerry Clom's franked that form since, has took a big step forward since. But I'm just not sure the Real Whacker is in the same class as Shishkin, Braveman's Game and Allaho just yet. You know, this is his first run in open Grade 1 company. He hasn't had the ideal prep. Obviously pulled up in the Paddy Power Gold Cup on his return to action. And I think he'll do well to bounce back from that performance. And obviously the minor injury he had as well on the day and come and win a King George. But he's a really likeable horse. He's going to have more to offer. But I just think that he probably would struggle at the moment against 3 real top-notch Grade 1 horses.
And Andy, just a quick word on Frodon and Hewitt, who complete the sextet. Do you give any chance to either of them?
They're both wonderful horses and wonderful stories behind them. And who are we looking at here? This is Hewick, of course, winning at Sandown. I mean, this horse started off his career in 3 point-to-points, and he fell twice, and an unseated rider, and from there it's been a rags to riches story. The ground will definitely help Hewick. He's probably an underestimated horse, isn't he? And he was running a blinder in the Gold Cup when he came down there. He didn't really fire though at Galway last time. You just wonder again, has the Gold Cup? We talk about it leaving a mark on Brave Man's Game. Has it left a mark on Hewick as well potentially? Because he certainly didn't fire at Galway. I know he came out and won at Sandown after Cheltenham, but he's very exposed, isn't he? But Gavin Sheehan's on him, and he seems to be winning on everything at the moment. So he was a huge price about a week ago. He's sort of 14-16 to 1 now. I think that's about right for him. Frodon, absolutely tremendous servant. And is this the win from 2020?
Yes.
I mean, he's terrific front running horse, isn't he? Won a shed load of races, 19 wins from 51 starts, and Bryony on him all the time. But Father Time is on his shoulder now. I can't quite see him, and he's also going to have plenty of competition for the lead. Again, though, we'll like the drying ground, so he could be a factor in the race, but I can't see him winning the race.
So Harry, then your fancy in the King George is?
I'm sticking with Allaho, Danny. I think he's the best horse in the race. I know, obviously, Andy was saying about his latest run, been a bit ring rusty, jumping out to his left. I think in heavy grounds, with a lack of a recent run, lacked match practice, I thought it was a fairly okay comeback. Obviously, it wasn't ideal. He wasn't, didn't win that impressively, but I just think it was a stepping stone for this race. I expect Willie Mullins left a lot to work on, and if he is back to his very best, I think he'll take all the beating on Boxing Day.
So that's Harry with Allaho, and Andy.
I'll probably go and pour myself a small little sherry as they're starting just before the start, as they're milling round, hide behind the sofa, hope that Shishkin jumps off, and then happy days from there, hopefully.
So Shishkin for Andy, and I'm also in agreement with Shishkin. So that's a look then at the big race, the King George. Next up for us is going to be a look at the Kauto Star. Yes, it's not all about the King George. The Kauto Star is another decent renewal. Giovinco, Hermes Allen, Ile Francais, the fascinating French runner, Kilbeg King, Marble Sands, and Tighten Your Belts. So that's a look at them, but how do they bet? Well, 7-4 favourite currently, Ile Francais, 5-2 for both Giovinco and Hermes Allen. Massive prices about the other three. I'll come to you first, Andy, on this occasion. Who do you like in this contest?
Hermes Allen for me. Danny, I thought when he won the Challow last year, he looked an absolute monster that day. Didn't quite happen for him at the spring festivals, but then when he won on his chasing debut at Newbury, I was really impressed. It was a ferocious pace that day. Was it Nickelback? I'm just looking at my notes. Nickelback. Sorry. But this is the Challow we're watching here. I'm sorry, we're going backwards and forwards. It's like Back to the Future. This is on Challow Day, and of course You Were It Well was second here, chased him home. She went on, of course, won at the Cheltenham Festival as well. So that form stacks up. But he looks a chaser, and really polished at Newbury. I thought his jump in there was a treat. And apparently he hadn't had a straightforward prep to get him there. I think Paul Nicholls had just about got him there on time, and felt that the horse would come on a lot for that run. So I thought it was a really taking start there. And with plenty more to come, he's the one for me. The French horse, Ile Francais, we don't know quite how good he is, but he has been winning on really deep, heavy ground. It could be a bit of a culture shock for him on Boxing Day, but he will tear off from the front. So if you like him, he might be a back to lay, the French horse. I can see him certainly getting shorter quite quickly and running.
Harry, of course, no VTs for Ile Francais, but we've got a couple about Giovinco as well. Where do you think the money should go here for the Kauto Star? Let's have a look at Giovinco's Aintree chase win first.
Yeah, I've been quite impressed with Giovinco, certainly over hurdles last season. Funny enough, I backed him at 20-1 anti-post for Brown Advisory at the start of the season. But I just think this horse is growing up. I wouldn't say quickly, but I just think he's in need of experience. This will be his fourth outing over fences already this season. And I know he got beat by Stairway Fay last time out, but I think there's a couple of reasons why he got beat there. I think he was, because of inexperience, he's not battle hardened yet. It was his first sort of proper battle. He won his hurdle race. He's pretty much on the bridle. And I just think Green has caught him out on the day. He was obviously hassled by the loose horse as well. But I'm hoping the 20-1 wager on him for the Brown Advisory will come good on the day, obviously in March. But I just think he needs a couple more outings over fences to get that experience behind him. They're certainly not wrapping him up in cotton wool anyway. Going to this race, having run on Sandown on the 8th of December. But he's a very good horse. But I think just on this occasion, I thought Hermes Allen was really professional at Newbury. Andy made a good case for him. I think he needed the run. Paul Nicholls was pretty vocal about that. He did have an away day at the Newbury Gallops morning beforehand. I remember seeing him in the flesh that day, and I thought, anything he does there would be a bonus ahead of Newbury because he did look a bit bigger and carried a bit of condition. So he definitely would have been in need to run there. But I thought he jumped really professionally there for his first run over fences. He's obviously a very useful hurdler. Couple of disappointments towards the end of last season, but I think his win was affecting him then. Gave him a wind up and he's come back looking as good as ever. Funnily enough, I was at Stratford when he won on his herding debut last season. I thought, surely Paul Nicholls isn't going to unleash a future Grade 1 winner at Stratford. But I don't think he shows much at home, this horse, and he saves it for the racetrack. But if I had to pick one here, it would be Hermes Allen. Just touching quickly on Ile Francais, as Andy mentioned, all of his wins have been on soft and heavy ground. This is going to be a completely different test for him. The ground is, I would say, at the time of speaking, drying out at Kempton. It's going to be, a completely different test to what he's used to. But I would say I saw a tweet that Tom George posted of Ile Francais schooling over the British fences, and he did look pretty good. So after watching that, my confidence isn't quite as high on Hermes Allen, but I'm still sticking with him in this Grade 1 contest at Kempton.
Okay, so 2 votes then for Hermes Allen. Very quick look, chaps, at the Christmas Hurdle, Constitution Hill, Black Poppy, First Street, Nameen Lion, who actually runs today at Ascot, Rubo, and So Royal. Brief word, Andy, on Constitution Hill. It's just good to finally see him back out, isn't it? This is his winning the Christmas Hurdle 12 months ago.
This is it. Yes, one of his wide margin wins. I think he's had 6 races over 2 miles, and he's won them by an average of 16 lengths each. I mean, what a fabulous racehorse. He's a fabulous 2 mile, hurdler in a division where there's very, very few that can get anywhere near him. So he's outstanding, and I think the rest of the division's sort of very, very weak. So it sort of extenuates his superiority. I mean, this should be a cakewalk for him, but just remind you of the fact that there's been 2 other Nicky Henderson champion hurdle winners that have popped up in this race. One was Epatante, and she got beat, I think, at 1-5, and then another one was Bouvoudère, and he got beat at 1-6. And here we are, the betting's just scrolling across, and Constitution Hill is 1-7. So there is a bit of a pattern when it comes to Nicky Henderson horses short odds in the Christmas Hurdle. And of course, with jump racing, it does pay to expect the unexpected, but barring mishaps, this horse is going to win again, isn't he? I mean, Rhubarb will set the pace, and Rhubarb is 6 from 6 when making the running. He's going to get a pretty softish lead. Here he's winning at Kempton in October. So Royal, who meets again, he was back in 4th, just lunged a bit at the last day. He was giving weight here this day. For me, he's a horse I can't forget him. I backed him to win the Betfair Hurdle anti-post at 16-1. He was running off a mark of 130. He's now he got beat that day. They tried to hold him up, and he tried to pull Harry Cobden's arms out of his sockets. He probably did. And since then, they've just let him get on with it, and that's the way to ride the horse. And he's up to 149 now. So he maybe had £20 up his sleeve that day at Newbury, but my £20 unfortunately went west.
Harry, any brief thoughts on this race? Have a look at the champion hurdle win.
Just think that Constitution Hill is, in my opinion, he's going to be an all-time great. I'm slightly digressing here, but on social media, people like hyping up these sort of horses down there, especially if like a novice wins, a race by 10 lengths on a bridle, he goes short for the Supreme. Even on the flat, when City of Troy won a Dewhurst, people are saying that he's a better 2-year-old at this stage than Frankel was. sometimes these horses can be overhyped, but I think any superlatives for Constitution Hill and any talk about him being an all-time great, I think are justified. I think he is such a good horse. I can't wait to see him on Boxing Day. If you could pick a couple of holes in him and find a couple of negatives, I guess it's because, you know, he's missed a couple of engagements recently, but I just think he's an absolute superstar. And you know, barring accidents, he should win and should win really well here. His demeanour is incredible. I've been lucky enough to go to a couple of media days at Nick Henderson's over the past couple of seasons, and literally nothing phases him. You know, even when you've got a bunch of media there all taking photographs, videos, that sort of thing, he just literally looks asleep. He's an amazing creature, and I think he's just one in a million, really. I think he's such a good horse, and I can't wait to see him light up Kempton on Boxing Day.
So that's a look then at the feature races at Kempton. The guys have got a couple of fancies later on that we'll give you. But first up, we're going to have a quick look at the action at Aintree and Wetherby and the feature races there. So this new card at Aintree features Grade 1 action. The Tolworth Hurdle used to be run at Sandown, now called the William Hill Formby Novices Hurdle. And for me, I think Tell Her the Name is the one to be with here for Ben Pauling. This horse pulls very, very hard and was second to Django Bay when the pair met at Ascot on November the 4th. Django Bay did very well to win that day, given how hard he pulled, and the pair pulled well clear, only a nose between them. This was an easy win then at Huntingdon, justifying odds-on favouritism for Tell Her the Name. I would like this horse to settle a little bit better, but given there's only a nose between him and Django Bay, and when the prices before we had decks this morning, I think it was around 4-5 to 1 Tell Her the Name compared to Django Bay was a 5-2 shot. I didn't really understand that market, so I thought Tell Her the Name made a pill there. Any brief thoughts on this, Andy?
Yes. We've had all this talk about the French horse coming over for the Kauto Star, but I've barely seen a mention of is it July Flower coming over for this? Let me just check. Let me double check the name.
Yes,
there.
Felix de Giles, July Flower. Oh, give us some intel.
Yeah, I couldn't believe he was double figure price here, Danny. Sort of 10 to 1. He's a group 1 bumper winner. Very good second in to a really good horse, a prolific French horse in a Group 1 hurdle Grade 1 hurdle last time. Loves soft ground. Stays further than the 2 miles. We'll get 2.5 miles. I think that's going to be important on Boxing Day. It looks like being pretty testing at Aintree. I was really surprised that horse was 10 to 1. So we're guessing to a degree about the form, but time form are usually pretty good judges. They've got this horse miles clear on their rating. So I thought a 10 to 1. I'll take a chance with her, and she gets £7 from the boys as well.
Okay, that's July Flower. And then, Harry, I know you spoke to Ben Pauling recently in the HWPAs. He's hopeful of a good run from Tell Her the Name. You've got Farron Glory, the Royal Bomb winner. You've got Camsina. So we've got a bit of VT4 here, winning at Haydock for Fergal O'Brien. But what did you make of Ben's comments about Tell Her the Name?
Yeah, he's had a couple of drinks, to be honest with you, Danny. So I'm hoping he was a bit more honest than usual, shall we say. Sorry if you are watching, Ben. But he did say Tell Her the Name, they hope is the horse to take their yards to the next level. Really high hopes for him. And if I had to have a bet in this race, it probably would be Tell Her the Name. I think he's shown bundles of promise, jumped pretty well. But I think this is a race to watch for the future as well. It looks a strong one on paper, and I think it'll work out to be a really good race. So if I was pushed to have a bet, Tell Her the Name, but it wouldn't be an overly confident choice in what looks a very hot race.
And we've also, of course, got the William Hill Rowland Meyrick. That's up at Wetherby 135. The off time into overdrive even is the defending champion. Here's a look at that win last year. But Andy, who do you like?
Yeah, this is into overdrive. He was in fantastic form coming into this, and kept on a roll here. He just kept progressing up the ranks. Then they took him to Cheltenham and he blew out there, and we've not seen him since. But I guess this race has been on his agenda for a little while. I like another horse that's coming in fresh, and that's Does He Know? He's very effective first time out. If you look at his record, he's basically won first time out for the last three seasons. He unseated at the first one year, but then come out and won next time. And he also won after a 3-month break as well. So I like the fact that he's coming here completely fresh. Got a lot of weight, but he's a 4-time Cheltenham winner, stays well, ground not an issue, and he'll do for me. Does he know? And I also quite like Fontaine Collonges down the bottom, but she had that remarkable exit, the first at Sandown when we last saw her. She's another one that goes well fresh. So there's only 6 runners. It's cut up a little bit, but I think it's actually a pretty good renewal.
Okay, that's Does He Know in the Rowland Meyrick. But what about naps then for Boxing Day? First up, I'll give mine because the guys are going head to head. So I like the chances of Email Andy. I think this horse, I've emailed Andy plenty of times in the past. He's probably sick and tired of them, but hopefully Email Andy can deliver the goods here. This was the third when last seen. And I thought this was a good enough effort after the mistake there was at the second last, lost a bit of momentum, and then was just denied by a Nicky Henderson train winner and Alan King pair who went on. But I thought this was a decent enough effort. I thought there was plenty of improvement to come. And I think this race was won last year by Grey Dawning, who's gone on to much better things. So you can get a well handicap type in this. Thought there was lots to like about the effort and hopefully can deliver the goods. So that is in the 340. Email Andy. Let's go to you guys, though, because you both like one in the 12:45. Harry, I'll let you make your case first.
Thanks, Danny. Yeah, I've gone for Idalco Bihu in the opener at Kempton on Boxing Day. Now, I was actually at Worcester when this horse made his herding debut for Norwich Whiston Davies. I was really taken with him before, during, and after the race. He just looked like a horse who's going to develop into a real good chaser in time. And I think whenever the Whiston Davies team run a horse over hurdles in a Grade 1 contest, they think an awful lot of them. And that's what I did with Idalco B, who finished third in the shallow hurdle last season. Ran okay behind Hermes Allen, basically outclassed on the day. And while things didn't go to plan after that, they still stuck with Grady company. I just think he was a bit of a baby last season, still growing into his frame. And he very much looked a horse for the future. And I know after he fell at Warwick, the Whiston Davies team were disappointed with that. They thought he'd win that day. He was well backed, but their confidence was justified when he won at Cheltenham last time out. And although he's going to pay £8 for that win, I thought he jumped okay that day. He was a little bit novice-y. There was definitely room for improvement, but he won with plenty in hand. And he didn't get too far at Warwick. He didn't have a hard race. So although Cheltenham wasn't his seasonal debut, you could argue that was a run to sort of get him going for the season. So I think with that run under his belt, he can only improve. He's held in high regard by the Whiston Davies team. And I know after his Cheltenham win, there was a slight glint in Nigel's eye. I spotted that. I think he thinks a lot of this horse. And I think if you said to them he's only going to be rated 135 at the end of the season, I think they'd be disappointed. I think he's a 140 plus rated horse in the making, and I'll be disappointed if he doesn't go close at Kempton.
So that is Idalco Bihu for Harry. That's a hard name to say. 12:45 Kempton, though. You're not in agreement, Andy. You like another one. Tell us your thoughts on the race.
Well, first of all, you take on Harry Allwood at your peril. I mean, it's risky, but I was going to take on you, and then I thought, well, you take you on your peril, so I've got to take on one of you. I like General Madrano in this, the top one. Left his hurdling form well behind over fences. A nice stamp of a horse. One at Utoxas, then one at Huntingdon. Then they took him to Plumpton, and he bumped into Brave Kingdom on that occasion and was trying to give that horse £6. Brave Kingdom jumped superbly that day, made all. Was far from disgrace. General Madrano come to challenge him at the last, was just seen off. And the third horse was Martyr, and he was trying to give that horse £15. Now, Brave Kingdom has since come out and won off 1-3-3 at Newbury in good style. Martyr, who was receiving all that weight, also has run well since at Newbury, behind another lovely horse called Etalon. So it's all adding up. All the bits and pieces of General Madrano's form are adding up. He jumps well. Don't think the ground's an issue. And yes, he'll do for me. I think he's got a few pounds in hand. And this is him winning at Huntingdon here. He got slightly squeezed for room here, and then we finally saw some daylight, and that's an example of his jumping. He's in the elite colours there, Elite Racing Club colours. Doesn't look overly impressive here, does he? At the finish, second horse was of Gary Moore's that I think it was up in the air. Ran well enough there, but you see there. I mean, look at him compared with the second horse. He's a big boy, and hopefully he's a bit more up his sleeve. Okay. And in your race, I like Artistic Endeavour. who has been screaming out for a longer distance. He's only been at 2 miles up to now. He's bred to stay well. He runs as if he'll definitely improve the trip. His form is pretty solid. So I'll take you on with Artistic Endeavour, and I'll take Harry on with General Madano. We'll have a side bet on it, maybe a bottle of Bailey's or something, whoever wins.
So there you go. Andy's Nat General Madrano, Harry Edulko Buiu, and I'm with Email Andy in the 340. So that's it in terms of previews, but a little bit of fun to finish. I asked the guys for their favourite King George memories. So I'm going to just kick off with one which was dramatic. 2004 Kicking King, final fence, and a bad Santa.
Over Azertiob, he can't make any impression. Kingscliff is third. They're a mile clear of the others, and racing down towards the final fence is Kicking King and Barry Geraghty. A star emerging here at Kempton Park. Kicking King short forward, a hatch of it. Barry Geraghty has to sit very tight indeed. Azertiob and Kingscliff both trying to close. Kicking King, he's lost all momentum. He's got 100 yards left to go, and is Kicking King by 3 lengths. Kicking King will stay on and win the King George despite that hot.
Glorious memories, that bad Santa. What about yourself, Harry? What have you picked?
I found it difficult to narrow it down to one King George when you asked me this question a few days ago, Danny. But the one that I went for was the 2011 King George that Kauto Star won. Now, he obviously lit up Kempton numerous times over Christmas in this race over the years, but he'd been beaten the previous year. Things hadn't gone to plan after either, and he came with question marks against him when returning in the 2011-2012 season. And he obviously silenced the doubters at Haydock in the Betfair Chase prior to his win in 2011 in the King George. And I think to come back after a bit of a layoff, a few problems, people doubting him, long run looked the new kid on the block, but he lowered his colours in the Betfair Chase and in the King George. And I think to come back at 11 years old and regain his crown, he wasn't, a most impressive winner. I don't think he was at his very best on the day, but he's still good enough to beat Long Run. And the pair pulled 17 lengths clear of Captain Chris as well. But I remember the atmosphere at Kempton that day was electric. And I just think, it was a super performance from a superstar chaser who is probably the best horse I've seen over fences in my lifetime anyway.
2 fences to jump then, and Kauto Star still has this about 3 or 4 length advantage at the second last. He's at it now, he's jumped it perfectly. Long Run in second position, Captain Chris in third, Summersby's behind this in 4th place. It's a 5 or 6 length lead. He's rewritten the record book so many times, Kauto Star. Long Run is still trying to close on in the last. Kauto Star 2 lengths ahead to Long Run in second position. They're heading towards the line. The steeplechaser of a lifetime. Kauto Star is in front. Long Run's closing, but Kauto Star has done it. He's won 5.
I love that leap at the last as well. Gorgeous
stuff, wasn't it?
And Andy, finally, who have you gone with?
Has to be, doesn't it? Has to be. Look at him. Look at what a magnificent racehorse. Desert Orchid. You don't want to see me. Desert Orchid. He's the. I mean, you could pick any of Desi's races for me. Absolutely wonderful. I mean, he had 71 of them. I don't know if you're familiar with his back catalogue. You're very young, the pair of you. Just a wonderful racehorse. And I think I've gone with the 1990 Renault. I've gone for his 4th King George win, where he'd effectively been written off in certain divisions. He's feeling his years by then, but absolutely magnificent. And Kempton just rose to a man to him. Everyone turned up. Desi just knocked your eye out. Big grey horse, and of course the first horse he had to beat was himself, because he'd tear off at 1,000,000 miles an hour as if his tail was on fire, and he'd stand outside the wings and he'd just fly through his fences. It was just wonderful organised chaos for Desert Orchid, and he was just a constant for everyone, and part of Christmas Day, or the Christmas season. He ran at Kempton 7 times, he ran in a Christmas hurdle before he ran any 6 King Georges. And funny enough, the other image of him I'll always remember is was there for his final King George, where he was feeling his age by then. He was nearly 13, and he was out the back when he fell over, and there was just a horrible silence around Kempton, thinking, what's happened to the wonderful grey horse. And the fellow passed the post, and it was sort of quite muted. And then Desi actually come along afterwards on his own. He got rid of Richard Dunwoody quite right. And there he was, this grass-stained horse just flying past us, and all of Kempton again gave him just the most wonderful ovation. But let's watch 1919 and remind ourselves of his brilliance.
George, he's gone clear by 5. They've got 3 to jump. Desert Orchid, oh, what a leap! Toby Tobias in second, the fellow is third, and he's got 2 to jump. And it's Desert Orchid clear by 8. He's got the race won now, 2 to jump. Desert Orchid comes to it. He's been here before, and it's Desert Orchid clear by 10. He's pushed up, but don't worry, nothing's getting closer. Toby Tobias is in second. The crowd's going absolutely wild. They've got 1 to jump, and it's Desert Orchid. He comes to take it. And he's jumped it brilliantly. This was his race. Desert Orchid. Watch history being made. Rolls of applause. The king's in his counting house. Desert Orchid's blooming. He's been here before. Desert Orchid the winner. Marvellous. Desert Orchid.
Brilliant stuff from Desi. You can't beat it. Well, thanks very much to the guys for all their company. Fingers crossed for a few winners on Boxing Day. Remember, you can watch the likes of Kempton, Wetherby, Aintree, and of course, all the fantastic Irish action headlined by the Leopardstown Christmas Festival and some good action at Limerick as well, all on Racing TV. Check out the website, check out all the different streams if you want to watch dedicated action on one channel. But this is what's coming up at Kempton on Boxing Day.
The final flight of the Christmas hurdle. Vaheen is over and clear. Vaheen, a back-to-back winner of the Christmas hurdle. He's a machine. He's never come out of second gear here. Constitution Hill, virtually a common canter to take the Grade 1 Ladbrokes Christmas hurdle. And Flanders Ovo, last year's winner, is now coming right away from stable companion Surname, and it's a second King George for Flanders Ovo. The steeplechaser of a lifetime. Kauto Star is in front. Long runs closing, but Kauto Star has done it. He's won 5 King Georges. But it is for 4, and Ruby Walsh out in front. Hugh Card is coming. He's coming hard. Here comes the line. Too close to call.
Thanks very much for watching. Enjoy the Christmas period. Merry Christmas to one and all. Make sure you check out the On The Wire podcast as well if you want any selections for the action across the Irish Sea. Harry and Andy's tips can be found on the Racing TV website along the likes of Dave Nevison and many, many more. Thanks again. And just please remember to gamble responsibly.